I'm in charge now. Your boss knows that, right? The smirk on his face told me everything I needed to know about the next 60 seconds of my life. My badge sat on the desk between us. 10 years of loyalty, innovation, and late nights, reduced to a piece of plastic reflecting the overhead lights. I'm telling you to think twice, I said, keeping my voice level. Talk to IP legal first. He shrugged, already turning toward his new corner office. No need, just leave. The elevator doors closed on a career I'd built from nothing. But as those steel panels slid shut, something else opened up, a clarity about what was about to unfold that almost made me smile. Welcome to Payback Office Channel, where workplace justice isn't just a fantasy, it's a carefully documented reality. Stories like mine happen every day, but not all of them have the ending you're about to hear. If you appreciate seeing arrogance meet consequence, there's a subscribe button waiting for you. We're building a community on our way to 8,000 subscribers who believe that integrity still matters in corporate America. Join us if you want to see how this plays out. My name is Beatrice Harrington, and until that Tuesday afternoon, I was Senior Innovation Director at TechRight Solutions. I didn't grow up in boardrooms or country clubs. My parents taught me that success means nothing if you forget the people who got you there. A lesson that shaped everything about how I approached my work and the people around me. Let me take you back to where this really began. 3 months before that termination meeting, our founder and CEO, William Ashford, called me into his office with news that should have been exciting. We were expanding. The company I'd helped build from a 20-person startup into a 300-employee industry leader was bringing in executive-level talent to manage our growth. Beatrice, I want you to meet someone, William said, gesturing to the man standing by the window. This is Dominic Fletcher. He's going to be our new vice president of operations. Dominic turned with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Everything about him screamed expensive. The watch, the suit, the shoes that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. We shook hands, and his grip was exactly what I expected. Performative firmness designed to establish dominance. Beatrice, he said, drawing out my name like he was tasting wine. Williams told me about your work, the Patterson integration system, impressive for someone without a traditional technical background. There it was, less than 30 seconds in, and he'd already taken a shot. My degrees from Stanford weren't traditional enough, apparently. Or maybe it was the fact that I'd started in customer service and worked my way up that didn't fit his narrative of how executives should arrive at their positions. The system saved the company $4.2 million in the first year alone, I replied. Background becomes irrelevant when the results speak. William laughed, missing the tension entirely. That's exactly the kind of innovation thinking we need as we scale. Dominic, Beatrice is someone you'll want to partner with closely. She knows this company inside and out. Over the next few weeks, I learned that Dominic Fletcher had no intention of partnering with anyone. He had plans, and those plans involved reorganizing everything William had built, starting with removing anyone whose loyalty to the founder might interfere with his vision of leadership. The signs were subtle at first. My direct reports started being pulled into meetings I wasn't invited to. Projects I'd initiated were suddenly being reviewed for strategic alignment. Budget approvals that used to take a day began requiring multiple levels of sign-off. Then came the morning Dominic sent out the new organizational chart. My assistant, Holly, brought it to my attention with the kind of careful expression people use when delivering bad news. The chart showed the entire innovation department, my department, now reporting directly to Dominic, with a dotted line to me labeled advisory capacity. I'd been effectively demoted without a single conversation. I walked straight to Dominic's office. He was on the phone but waved me in, holding up one finger while he finished laughing at something his caller said. Everything about his body language told me this was deliberate. He wanted me to wait. He wanted me to understand the new hierarchy. When he finally hung up, he leaned back in his chair. Beatrice, what can I do for you? The org chart, I said. We need to discuss it. What's to discuss? We're restructuring for efficiency. Your role becomes more strategic, less operational. You should be thanking me, more time for big picture thinking. My team needs direct leadership, not advisory notes from the sidelines. He smiled. Your team? That's interesting phrasing. They're TechRight's team, Beatrice. We all serve the company, not our own little kingdoms. The conversation went nowhere. I left his office understanding that this wasn't about efficiency or strategy, it was about control. Dominic Fletcher was building his own empire, and anyone who might challenge his authority needed to be neutralized. I scheduled a meeting with William, but his calendar had become impossibly packed. Dominic's arrival had coincided with our largest acquisition to date, and William was traveling constantly, managing investors, negotiating terms, handling the 1,000 details that come with doubling your company's size overnight. He's in Singapore this week, William's executive assistant told me. Then London, then Boston. I can probably get you 15 minutes when he's back in 3 weeks. 3 weeks turned into 4, then 5. Every time I got close to a meeting, something came up. Another trip, another crisis, another priority. And during those weeks, Dominic worked quickly. 2 of my senior developers took positions at other companies. Nothing personal, one of them told me over coffee. But Dominic made it clear that the innovation track doesn't have the same growth potential anymore. He's redirecting resources to operations. A project I'd spent 8 months developing, an AI integration that would have revolutionized our customer interface, was shelved pending resource reallocation. The team was reassigned. The budget disappeared. I documented everything. Every conversation, every email, every decision that dismantled what I'd built. Some instinct I couldn't name told me that records would matter. Then William announced he was taking a 2-week vacation, his first real time off in 3 years. The acquisition was complete. The integration was on track. He was going to disconnect completely, somewhere remote where he could finally rest. You'll be in excellent hands, he told the company during an all-staff meeting. Dominic will be acting CEO during my absence. I have complete confidence in his leadership. Dominic stood next to William, soaking in the moment. When his eyes found mine across the conference room, that same smile appeared, the one that didn't reach his eyes. I felt it then, the certainty that something was coming. William left on a Friday. By Monday afternoon, I was sitting in Dominic's office with an HR representative I'd never met before. Beatrice, we've been evaluating the structure of the innovation department, Dominic began, his voice carrying that false sympathy that predators use before they strike. With the company's new direction, we've determined that your role no longer aligns with our strategic needs. Effective immediately, we're terminating your employment. The HR representative, a nervous woman named Alice who kept glancing at her notes like they might save her, slid a folder across the desk. Your severance package is outlined here. 2 weeks for every year of service, which given your tenure amounts to. Stop, I said quietly. Both of them paused. Dominic, you understand that I hold IP rights to 3 of the core systems currently in production. His expression didn't change. All work performed as a TechRight employee belongs to TechRight. Standard employment agreement. Standard agreement, yes, but my contract was negotiated before we had standard agreements. I was employee number 7. My IP clause is very specific about collaborative works and ownership stakes in proprietary systems I developed independently and licensed to the company. That's not my understanding, Dominic said, but something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty. Then I strongly suggest you speak with IP Legal before we proceed. Specifically, talk to Graham Morrison in legal. He drafted my current contract himself. Dominic's jaw tightened. I don't need to consult legal about a straightforward termination. We have every right to restructure our workforce as needed. You absolutely do have that right, I agreed. But what you don't have is the right to the Patterson integration system, the velocity framework, or the quantum analytics engine once I'm no longer an employee. Those revert to me personally, with TechRight retaining a license that must be renegotiated annually. A license that requires my active employment or a specific separation agreement negotiated with the founder's direct involvement. Alice had gone pale. Mr. Fletcher, perhaps we should. I'm in charge now, Dominic interrupted, his voice hardening. Your boss knows that, right? He looked directly at me with that infuriating smirk. These scare tactics might have worked with William, but I'm not interested in being held hostage by someone who thinks they're irreplaceable. I stood up, leaving the severance folder untouched on his desk. I'm not trying to scare you, Dominic. I'm trying to save you from a mistake that will cost this company tens of millions of dollars and likely your career. Talk to Graham Morrison, read my contract, do this the right way. He shrugged, no need, just leave. You're sure? Security will escort you out, he replied, already opening his laptop like I'd ceased to exist. Alice will handle the details. 20 minutes later, I was in the parking lot with a box containing a coffee mug, a photo of my parents, and a succulent plant that had survived on my desk for 6 years. My access badges, my laptop, my key card, all surrendered. 10 years reduced to objects that fit in a 12-inch cube. But I wasn't worried, not even a little. That evening, I sent 3 emails from my personal account. The first went to Graham Morrison in IP Legal. Graham and I had developed a friendship over the years, built on mutual respect and a shared appreciation for precision in contract language. Graham, wanted to give you a heads up that Dominic Fletcher terminated my employment today without consulting legal regarding IP implications. Thought you should know before Monday morning gets interesting. The second went to the private email William had given me years ago for emergencies. William, hope you're enjoying your time off. When you're back, we should talk. Nothing that can't wait, but it's important. Take care. The third went to myself. A compilation of every document, every email, every piece of evidence showing the systematic dismantling of the innovation department and the circumstances of my termination. Then I waited. William was hiking somewhere in New Zealand with spotty cell service at best. He wouldn't be back for another week. That gave Dominic 7 days to discover what he'd done. The first sign came on Wednesday. Graham Morrison called my cell phone. Beatrice, please tell me Dominic didn't actually fire you without talking to me first. He did. Silence, then. He's done more damage than he realizes, hasn't he? The Patterson system alone handles 63% of our customer transactions. It goes offline in 72 hours without my active employment status to maintain the license. The Velocity framework supports our entire backend infrastructure. Quantum Analytics runs every piece of business intelligence we provide to clients. And all of them revert to you personally. All of them, I confirmed. With TechRite retaining temporary licenses that require renegotiation through specific channels. Channels that don't include a VP who's been here less than 3 months. Graham let out a long breath. I tried calling him this morning. He said he didn't need legal's input on HR matters. I sent him your contract with the relevant sections highlighted. He hasn't responded. Pride is expensive, I said. Beatrice, I have to ask, are you going to pull the licenses? No, I said immediately. I'm not interested in hurting the company or the people who still work there, but I am interested in making sure Dominic understands that actions have consequences. When William gets back, we'll sort this out properly. William's going to lose his mind, Graham said, and I could hear the smile in his voice despite the seriousness of the situation. Dominic has no idea what's about to hit him. Friday arrived with increasing desperation from the executive floor. Alice from HR called me twice, asking if I'd be willing to come in and discuss options. I politely declined. Dominic himself sent an email, remarkably formal and completely lacking his earlier arrogance, requesting a meeting to ensure smooth transition of knowledge. I didn't respond to that one at all. The systems were still running on their existing licenses, but the countdown had begun. In the background, automated notices were being generated, IP ownership transfers initializing, license expiration warnings triggering. Every day without resolution brought TechRite closer to a technical catastrophe that would make headlines in every industry publication. And through it all, William remained blissfully unaware on his mountain trails, probably taking photos of glaciers and breathing air that didn't smell like conference rooms and corporate ambition. Monday morning of week 2, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. When I answered, a professional voice said, "Miss Harrington? This is James Chen, apologies, James Robinson from Sterling and Associates. We represent TechRight Solutions. Mr. Fletcher has asked us to facilitate a discussion regarding intellectual property licensing." So Dominic had escalated to outside counsel. That meant he'd finally read my contract and understood the magnitude of his mistake. But he was still trying to handle it without William, still trying to maintain the illusion of control. "Mr. Robinson, I appreciate the call, but my contract is very specific. IP negotiations require direct involvement from the company founder. I'm happy to wait until Mr. Ashford returns from vacation." "Miss Harrington, I'm sure we can reach an agreement that—" "I'm sure we can too," I interrupted gently, "when William is back. Until then, the existing licenses continue their standard expiration process. No systems will be shut down prematurely. No data will be compromised. Everything will function normally until the licenses expire through standard protocol. But I won't be negotiating with anyone except William Ashford." I hung up before he could respond. That same afternoon, my former team members started reaching out. Holly, my assistant, sent a text, "The executive floor is in complete chaos. Dominic has been in emergency meetings all day. People are asking where you are. What happened?" I kept my response simple. Dominic made a decision without having all the information. It'll get sorted out when William is back. By Wednesday, the pressure had apparently become unbearable. Dominic called me directly. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. On the third attempt, I answered. "Beatrice," his voice had lost all its polish. "We need to resolve this situation." "I agree. I'm prepared to offer reinstatement with a significant raise and expanded responsibilities. We can put this misunderstanding behind us." "That's generous, Dominic, but you don't have the authority to make that offer. You're acting CEO, not the founder. My contract requires William's direct involvement in any separation or reinstatement negotiations. William trusts my judgment." "Then you should have exercised better judgment before terminating me without consulting legal. I told you to talk to Graham Morrison. I told you to think twice. You chose not to listen." His tone shifted, hardening into something closer to his natural arrogance. "You're playing a dangerous game, Beatrice. Holding the company hostage won't look good to any future employers." "I'm not holding anyone hostage," I replied calmly. "I'm simply following the exact terms of my contract, the same contract you should have read before firing me. The systems will continue functioning normally until their licenses expire. That gives everyone plenty of time to negotiate properly once William returns. This is entirely fixable, Dominic. It just requires you to wait 4 more days and let the actual CEO handle it." 4 days where those systems could fail. "They won't fail. They'll expire at the end of their licensing period, which doesn't happen until after William is back. You have time. You just don't have control, and that's what's really bothering you." I could hear him breathing on the other end, probably calculating angles, looking for leverage he didn't have. "This will cost you," he finally said. "Maybe," I acknowledged, "but it's definitely going to cost you. 4 days, Dominic, then this becomes William's problem to solve." I disconnected. The final 72 hours before William's return felt like watching a storm approach from a distance. The company continued functioning, but tension radiated from headquarters. Graham Morrison sent me updates like weather reports. Dominic had the board's executive committee on a call for 3 hours today. They're not happy. "Did they ask about me?" I texted back. "Constantly. He's trying to paint this as you being vindictive and unreasonable. But the board includes people who remember your contract negotiations. They know what he did." Holly reported that Dominic had canceled all his external meetings and was essentially barricaded in the executive suite with lawyers and the CFO, running scenarios for what happened if they couldn't resolve the IP situation. "People are taking sides," she told me over coffee on Thursday. "Half the company thinks you're a hero for standing up to him. The other half thinks you should just negotiate and save everyone the stress." "What do you think?" I asked. She grinned. "I think Dominic Fletcher has been acting like he owns the place since day one, and someone needed to remind him that he doesn't. I'm just sorry it cost you your job." "I'm not sure it has," I said. "Not yet." Friday arrived, the day William was scheduled to land. His flight from Auckland connected through Los Angeles before arriving home at 6:47 p.m. I knew the exact time because I'd helped his assistant book the original tickets months ago, back when I still had access to executive calendars and the inner workings of company operations. I wondered what Dominic's plan was. Would he tell William immediately? Try to fix it first and hope William never found out? Spin some story that made him look decisive rather than reckless? My phone rang at 8:23 p.m., William's personal cell. "Beatrice?" His voice sounded tired but warm. "I just got home and saw your email. What's going on?" "Welcome back," I said. "How was New Zealand?" "Life-changing. Exactly what I needed. Now tell me why my inbox has 47 urgent messages about IP licensing, and my VP of Operations has requested an emergency meeting first thing Monday morning." "You might want to move that meeting to tomorrow," I suggested, "or tonight if you're not too jet-lagged." "Silence, then. Beatrice, what did Dominic do?" "He fired me, 10 days ago, without consulting IP legal, without reviewing my contract, without understanding what systems I hold personal ownership of." More silence, longer this time. When William spoke again, his voice had completely changed. "He did what?" I walked him through everything. The termination meeting, my warnings, Dominic's refusal to consult Graham Morrison, the IP implications, the licensing deadlines, the increasingly desperate attempts at negotiation. "I told him to think twice," I explained. "I specifically said to talk to legal first. He looked at me and said, 'No need, just leave.'" William made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a growl. "I leave for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And he fires one of my most valuable people and puts the entire technical infrastructure at risk." To be fair, he thought he was in charge. You did announce him as acting CEO. "Acting CEO means keeping things running, not dismantling the leadership team." William's voice had risen. "I'm calling him right now. Are you free tomorrow morning?" "Completely free," I said. "Wide open schedule, actually." He laughed, sharp and humorless. "I'll bet. 10 o'clock, my office, I'm fixing this." "William?" "Yes." "It's not just about me. He's been systematically removing anyone whose loyalty is to you rather than him. 2 senior developers quit. He shelved the AI integration project. He's been reorganizing the entire company around his own vision. Firing me was just the most obvious mistake." Another long pause. "Send me everything. Every document, every email, every detail. I want the full picture before tomorrow." I sent him the file I'd compiled. The complete record of Dominic Fletcher's 3-month campaign to reshape TechRite in his image. That night, I slept better than I had since the termination meeting. Saturday morning arrived clear and bright. I dressed carefully, professional but not corporate, confident but not aggressive. This wasn't about proving anything. It was about restoring order to a company I'd helped build from nothing. I arrived at headquarters at 9:45. The weekend security guard recognized me and looked confused. "Miss Harrington," I thought. "Special meeting with Mr. Ashford," I said simply. He nodded and waved me through, probably deciding that whatever was happening was above his pay grade. William's assistant wasn't in on Saturday, so I walked directly to his office. The door was open. He was behind his desk, still tanned from his vacation, but looking significantly less relaxed than someone who just spent 2 weeks in nature. His laptop was open, and I could see email threads covering the screen. "Beatrice?" He stood immediately, coming around the desk to shake my hand, then surprising me by pulling me into a brief professional hug. "I'm so sorry. I can't believe this happened." "You couldn't have known," I said. "You needed that vacation. You deserved it." I hired someone I thought would help us scale. Instead, he treated my absence like a coup opportunity. William gestured to a chair. "I've been reading your documentation since midnight. The org chart changes, the project cancellations, the team departures. This is worse than I thought. He's ambitious, I said carefully. And he fundamentally misunderstood what makes TechRight work. We're not just another tech company optimizing for quarterly results. We built something based on innovation and trust. Exactly. William sat across from me, his expression serious. I need to know what you want here, Beatrice. Full reinstatement, obviously, with back pay and a formal apology. But beyond that, what does right look like to you? I'd been thinking about this question for 10 days. I want my team back. The innovation department reporting directly to you, like before. I want the AI integration project reinstated with full budget and resources. And I want absolute clarity about chain of command and decision-making authority, so this never happens again. Done, and done, William said immediately. What about Dominic? This was the harder question. That's your call, not mine. But I'll say this. Someone who makes decisions that reckless without consulting experts, who ignores warnings from people who know better, and who values control over collaboration. That person is a liability in leadership. William nodded slowly. He's going to be here at 11. I moved the meeting up from Monday because I didn't want him to have time to prepare a story. I want you to stay. I want him to see exactly what accountability looks like. William, that might beat. I know it's uncomfortable, but you deserve to be here for this. You tried to warn him, he dismissed you. He needs to understand the full scope of his failure. At 10:58, Dominic Fletcher arrived. I heard his voice in the outer office, confident and cheerful, probably assuming this was a routine check-in with the returned CEO. When he walked into William's office and saw me sitting there, he stopped mid-stride. Beatrice? He recovered quickly, his expression smoothing into neutrality. I wasn't aware you'd be joining us. Sit down, Dominic, William said, his tone leaving no room for discussion. Dominic sat, his eyes moving between us, calculating. William didn't waste time on pleasantries. Walk me through your decision to terminate Beatrice's employment. Dominic straightened, clearly moving into the presentation he'd probably rehearsed. It was part of a broader restructuring initiative. With the acquisition complete and our new growth trajectory, we needed to realign resources toward operational efficiency. Beatrice is tremendously talented, but her role had become redundant with our expanded executive team. I made the decision to. Stop, William interrupted. Did you review her employment contract before terminating her? The standard terms of employment allow for restructuring and. Did you review her specific contract? William's voice was quiet, but something in it made Dominic pause. I consulted with HR about the general process. Did you speak with Graham Morrison in IP Legal? Dominic's jaw tightened slightly. I determined that legal consultation wasn't necessary for a straightforward personnel decision. Even after Beatrice specifically told you to talk to legal before proceeding. She was trying to intimidate me into. She was trying to save you from making a catastrophic mistake? William's composure cracked. A mistake that has put 3 of our core systems at risk, cost us emergency legal fees of over $200,000, and potentially damaged relationships with major clients who are now asking questions about our technical stability. Dominic glanced at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine uncertainty in his expression. William, I was acting in what I believed were the company's best interests. The innovation department had become siloed, and we needed more integrated. You fired the person who built 63% of our transaction infrastructure, without reading her contract, without understanding IP implications, without consulting a single expert who could have explained what you were about to do. William stood, his hands flat on the desk. I promoted you to VP because I thought you brought operational discipline we needed as we scaled. Instead, you spent 3 months dismantling the culture and systems that made this company successful in the first place. I was trying to modernize. You were trying to consolidate power, William said flatly. The org chart changes that removed oversight. The project cancellations that eliminated initiatives you didn't personally control. The reassignments that pushed out people loyal to the original vision. I've read every email, Dominic, every memo, Every decision you made while I was focused on the acquisition and then on vacation. Dominic's face had gone pale. If I made mistakes in execution, I'm willing to adjust the approach. We can bring Beatrice back in a senior advisory role and... We're bringing Beatrice back as Senior Innovation Director, with full authority over her department and a seat on the executive leadership team, William said. We're reinstating every project you canceled, and we're going to have very serious conversations with the people you pushed out about whether they're willing to return. William, I don't think. And we're terminating your employment, effective immediately. The room went silent. Dominic stared at William like he'd been slapped. You're firing me. I'm correcting a hiring mistake, William said. You're talented, Dominic, I don't doubt that, but you're not the right leader for TechRite. You don't understand what we built here, and you're not interested in learning. You want to remake us in your image, and that's not what we need. You can't do this, Dominic said, his voice rising. I have a contract, I have board support, I've delivered results on every operational metric. And destroyed team morale, alienated key talent, and made reckless decisions that could have cost us tens of millions of dollars, William countered. Your contract has a standard termination clause. HR will handle the details. Alice will be up shortly to walk you through it. Dominic looked at me again, and this time I saw anger. This is because of her. She poisoned you against me. No, William said firmly. This is because of you. Beatrice tried to warn you. She gave you multiple chances to handle her termination properly. You ignored her, dismissed her expertise, and charged ahead with arrogance instead of judgment. She didn't create this situation. You did. I was making the company more efficient. You were making yourself more powerful, William said. There's a difference. And in doing so, you showed me exactly who you are as a leader. Someone who doesn't listen to experts. Someone who values control over collaboration. Someone who can't distinguish between confidence and recklessness. Dominic stood abruptly. The board will hear about this. The board already knows, William replied. I briefed the executive committee at 7 this morning. They unanimously supported this decision after reviewing the full documentation of your actions. For a long moment, Dominic just stood there, probably running through options that didn't exist. Finally, he turned to me. You planned this. From the moment I fired you, you were setting this up. No, I said quietly. I documented it. There's a difference. You made your choices, Dominic. I just made sure there was a record of them. He left without another word, his expensive shoes silent on the carpet, all his earlier arrogance stripped away. When the door closed behind him, William sank back into his chair. I hired him because I was overwhelmed. The acquisition, the growth, the pressure, I thought I needed someone who could bring order to chaos. Instead, I brought in someone who created more chaos. You couldn't have known, I said. He interviewed well, he had an impressive background. On paper, he was exactly what you needed. But I should have checked in more. I should have noticed what was happening to the culture, to the team. I was so focused on the external challenges that I missed the internal ones. You're fixing it now, I pointed out. That's what matters. William looked at me with something like exhaustion mixed with gratitude. I need you to know that you're not just an employee to me, Beatrice. You're part of the foundation of this company. What you built, the systems, yes, but also the culture of innovation and the way you develop talent, that's irreplaceable. I should have protected that better. We'll rebuild it, I said, together. Over the next several weeks, that's exactly what we did. My reinstatement was announced Monday morning in a company-wide email from William that didn't mince words. I made a significant error in judgment regarding recent leadership changes. Effective immediately, Beatrice Harrington is restored to her position as Senior Innovation Director with expanded authority and a seat on our executive leadership team. Additionally, Dominic Fletcher is no longer with the company. I take full responsibility for both the initial mistake and the disruption it caused. The response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Holly had tears in her eyes when I walked back into my office, which had been left untouched, as if the universe knew I'd be returning. My team members stopped by throughout the day, some professional and reserved, others openly celebrating. The last 3 weeks have been terrible, one of my developers told me. Dominic kept pushing us toward efficiency metrics that didn't make sense. He didn't understand what we were building. We reinstated the AI integration project with additional resources and a clear mandate from William. Build it right, not fast. The two senior developers who had left were contacted personally by William with apologies and offers to return with promotions and equity increases. One accepted immediately. The other needed time to think about it, but appreciated the gesture. Graham Morrison and I had lunch to celebrate the resolution. I've been practicing law for 23 years, he told me over sushi, and I've never seen someone handle a wrongful termination with that level of strategic patience. Most people would have either backed down or gone scorched earth. You found the exact middle path. I just wanted the right outcome, I said. Not revenge, not capitulation, just accountability and restoration. Well, you got both, he said, raising his sake cup. And you taught everyone in this company a lesson about the importance of reading contracts and consulting experts. The board formally apologized during my first executive leadership team meeting. We should have been more involved during William's absence, the chairwoman said. We gave Dominic too much latitude without enough oversight. That won't happen again. True to their word, they implemented new governance protocols. Acting CEO authority now came with specific limitations and required approvals. Major personnel decisions needed board notification within 24 hours. And critically, all terminations above a certain level required legal review before execution. Dominic Fletcher's legacy, William joked during one meeting. A comprehensive set of checks and balances to prevent future Dominic Fletchers. But the real work was cultural repair. The uncertainty and fear that Dominic had created in just 3 months took longer to undo. People had seen how quickly things could change, how vulnerable their positions might be, how leadership transitions could threaten everything they'd built. I spent hours in one-on-one meetings with team members, listening to their concerns, rebuilding trust. What happened to me won't happen to you, I told them. We're implementing protections to make sure of it. But more importantly, we're recommitting to the values that made TechRight special in the first place. We brought back the innovation forums that Dominic had canceled, monthly sessions where anyone in the company could pitch ideas directly to leadership. We reinstated the mentorship program that had helped me rise from customer service to executive leadership. We doubled down on transparency, with William holding quarterly all-hands meetings where he answered questions without filters. Slowly, the company began to feel like itself again. 3 months after my reinstatement, we launched the AI integration project. It exceeded every projection, reducing customer service response times by 47% while increasing satisfaction scores to record highs. Industry publications called it revolutionary. Competitors scrambled to build similar systems, and TechRight's valuation increased by 32% in a single quarter. William forwarded me one of the analyst reports with a simple note. This is what happens when you don't fire your best people. I framed it. 6 months later, I got an unexpected email. The subject line read, "Apology and Acknowledgement." It was from Dominic Fletcher. Beatrice, I've spent the last 6 months reflecting on my time at TechRight and my role in what happened. I was wrong about how I approached leadership, about how I treated you and others, and especially about how I handled your termination. I was so focused on proving myself and establishing authority that I forgot to listen to the people who actually understood the company. Your warning wasn't a threat. It was good advice from someone with more experience and wisdom than I was willing to acknowledge. I see that now. I'm working with an executive coach to address these blind spots, and I wanted you to know that you were right about everything. I hope you've been able to rebuild what I damaged. You deserved better than how I treated you. Sincerely, Dominic. I read it twice, sitting in my office as afternoon light slanted through the windows. It would have been easy to dismiss it as self-serving or too little, too late. But I recognized the vulnerability it took to write it, the growth it represented. I replied simply, Dominic, I appreciate you reaching out. Leadership is difficult, and we all make mistakes. The difference is whether we learn from them. It sounds like you're doing that work, which is commendable. I wish you well in your next chapter. Best, Beatrice. He didn't respond, and I didn't expect him to. Some conversations don't need continuation, they just need closure. A year after my termination and reinstatement, William called me into his office with a familiar expression. The one that meant big news. I've been thinking about succession planning, he said without preamble. I'm not going anywhere immediately, but I'm also not getting younger. The acquisition proved that we need stronger executive infrastructure, and the Dominic situation proved that I need to be more intentional about who I trust with this company's future. I had a feeling where this was going, but I waited. I want you to become Chief Innovation Officer and join me as co-CEO, he continued. Shared authority, shared responsibility. You run innovation and culture. I run strategy and external relations. We make major decisions together. And when I eventually do step back, you're positioned to take full leadership of a company you helped build. I sat with that for a moment. A year ago, I'd been terminated and escorted out of the building. Now, I was being offered the highest position in the company. That's a significant vote of confidence, I said carefully. It's a recognition of reality, William replied. You are TechRight's future. You always have been. I just got distracted and nearly lost sight of that. I won't make that mistake again. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need, he said. But Beatrice, say yes, this company needs you in that role. I thought about it for 3 days. Not because I had doubts about my capability or my commitment to TechRight, but because I wanted to be sure I understood what I was agreeing to. Co-CEO meant more than a title. It meant shared accountability for everything, successes and failures alike. On the 3rd day, I walked into William's office and said yes. The announcement generated significant press coverage. From wrongful termination to co-CEO, Beatrice Harrington's remarkable journey read one headline. How one executive's contract saved her career and changed a company read another. I did a few interviews, carefully framed. The story wasn't about revenge or vindication. It was about the importance of documentation, the value of expertise, and the power of leadership that prioritizes people over politics. When Dominic fired me, I could have responded with anger or desperation, I told one reporter. Instead, I relied on preparation I'd done years earlier. A contract that protected my work, relationships I'd built with people like Graham Morrison in legal, and documentation practices that ensured there was a clear record. None of that was dramatic, it was just professional discipline. What would you say to people facing similar situations? The reporter asked. Know your value, document everything, and don't let emotion drive your decisions. The systems I'd built spoke for themselves. I didn't need to argue or threaten, I just needed to let the facts be clear. And when William returned, he had everything he needed to make the right call. And Dominic Fletcher, any message for him? I smiled. I hope he's learned from the experience. Good leaders listen to experts, read the contracts, and understand that authority without wisdom is just arrogance with a title. That quote got picked up everywhere. 2 years after becoming co-CEO, TechRight went public. Our IPO was one of the most successful tech offerings of the year, and our story, including the Dominic Fletcher saga, became part of our corporate narrative, not as scandal, but as proof of our commitment to accountability and excellence. During the IPO roadshow, investors asked about governance and leadership stability. William and I presented together, showing the complementary nature of our partnership. We learned hard lessons about the importance of cultural fit in leadership, William told them. And we built systems to ensure that our values aren't negotiable regardless of growth pressures. Beatrice nearly got fired for those values, one investor noted. How do you prevent that from happening again? We can't prevent every mistake, I replied honestly. But we can build organizations resilient enough to correct them. Documentation, clear contracts, legal oversight, board engagement, these aren't obstacles to fast growth. They're foundations for sustainable growth. Dominic Fletcher taught us that the hard way. The investors appreciated the candor. Our offering was oversubscribed within hours. On the day of the IPO, I stood on the trading floor with William as TechRight stock began trading. The opening price exceeded projections by 18%. We'd built something that markets believed in, that customers trusted, that employees wanted to be part of. We did it, William said quietly, barely audible over the celebration around us. We did, I agreed. I'm sorry I almost threw it away by hiring the wrong person. I looked at him, this man who'd given me my first real opportunity in tech, who'd mentored me, who'd made a terrible mistake and then had the integrity to fix it. You didn't throw it away. You caught it. That's what good leaders do. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the IPO news. Congratulations on an incredible achievement. You deserved every bit of it. DF. Dominic Fletcher, 2 years later, still paying attention. I didn't respond this time. Some chapters closed themselves. Today, TechRight employs over 800 people across 5 countries. Our innovation pipeline is the strongest it's ever been. Our culture of mentorship and growth continues to attract top talent. And every new executive who joins the company hears the story of what happened when someone tried to consolidate power without understanding what made us successful. It's become legend, Holly told me recently. She's now director of executive operations, running Williams and my offices with terrifying efficiency. New hires ask about the Dominic Fletcher situation within their first month. What do people say about it? I asked, curious how the story had evolved. That you're not someone to underestimate, that preparation matters, that the company values expertise over hierarchy. Mostly, that TechRight takes care of people who take care of TechRight. That's a good legacy, I said. Better than his, she replied with a grin. Looking back on everything, the termination, the uncertainty, the careful navigation of contract terms and relationship capital, the vindication and restoration, I realized the real story isn't about one arrogant executive getting his comeuppance. It's about building something strong enough to survive leadership mistakes. It's about the value of relationships, documentation, and professional integrity. It's about staying calm when chaos erupts around you. The day Dominic fired me, I could have panicked. I could have accepted the severance and walked away quietly. I could have burned everything down on my way out. Instead, I relied on work I'd done years earlier, contracts negotiated when I had leverage, relationships built on mutual respect, systems designed with care. I trusted that truth and preparation would outlast arrogance and assumption. And they did. William announced last month that he'll be transitioning to executive chairman over the next 2 years, with me assuming sole CEO responsibilities. It's time, he said simply. This has always been where we were heading. Thank you for trusting me, I told him. Thank you for being worth that trust, he replied, even when I temporarily forgot it. The board approved the transition unanimously. The company responded with enthusiasm. And somewhere, I imagine Dominic Fletcher read the news and understood, finally, the full cost of the mistake he made that Tuesday afternoon when he said, "I'm in charge now," without understanding what that actually meant. Leadership isn't about authority. It's about responsibility, expertise, relationships, and the humility to listen when someone who knows better offers a warning. I'm telling you to think twice, I'd said. Talk to IP Legal first. No need, just leave. Those 4 words cost Dominic Fletcher his career and taught an entire company lessons worth far more than any severance package. So if you've stayed with this story all the way to the end, you understand that workplace justice isn't always immediate, but it can be inevitable. The subscribe button is still there if you believe these stories matter. We're building toward 8,000 subscribers who know that documentation beats desperation, preparation beats panic, and expertise beats arrogance every single time. Thanks for being part of this community.